Hi, I'm Dr. Rachel Bailey. I'm a clinical psychologist working in the private and public sector of New South Wales. I've been heavily involved in research focusing on the experience of people with personality disorder and their family members and carers. In particular, my PhD focused on the experience of family members and carers of people with personality disorder and the ways that mental health professionals can help. So, my talk today is on the research of the family and carer experience and the importance of family involvement in the treatment process for people with borderline personality disorder. All relationships can feel like being on a roller coaster ride. When our loved ones are up, usually we feel good, but when our loved ones are down, sometimes we can feel low with them. People with borderline personality disorder, or BPD, experience emotions more intensely, more frequently, and for longer periods of time than people without borderline personality disorder. So naturally, this roller coaster ride can feel a lot more extreme. This is what family members and carers of people with borderline personality disorder describe to me, feeling as though they're on an intense emotional roller coaster ride with their loved one. They describe being fearful of the next twist or turn and that they may unintentionally provoke it. So, oftentimes they seem to lose focus of taking care of themselves and direct all their energy to taking care of their loved one. But naturally, this can leave them feeling depleted. Research shows that family members and carers of people with BPD are significantly burdened, stressed, and sometimes even experience their own mental health difficulties such as anxiety or depression. Sometimes they also describe a grieving process as they see their loved ones suffering and not leading the life that they had hoped. Carers often tell me that they feel isolated and alone. The research into families and carers of people with mental health concerns has progressed considerably over the last 20 years. There is a growing body of evidence both from Australia and worldwide that shows that family and carer involvement is important in people's recovery. When we look at the family environment in research, we often measure a construct called expressed emotion, in particular emotional over-involvement. In the past, research has shown that family environments high in emotional over-involvement is associated to better outcomes for the person with borderline personality disorder. This is likely because if someone is emotionally over-involved, we know that they care, and this can be very validating of our distress. However, research that I conducted into the carer experience showed that emotional over-involvement is associated to worse outcomes for the carer, possibly because they are then focusing on the other person's needs and not on their own, possibly resulting in carer burnout. Of course, when our loved ones are suffering, we want to assist them in any way that we can. However, we also need to allow our loved ones room to grow and practice the strategies on their own. Carers often told me that it's hard to know when to step in and actively try to help their loved one, and when to step back and allow the person to try on their own. So this research showed that it's very important to involve carers to ensure that they can validate and support their loved one and balance this with taking care of themselves so that the relationship is sustainable over time. Research conducted both by myself and around the world has begun looking at how carers of people with borderline personality disorder can be better supported. A range of group programs have been evaluated and found to reduce carer burden, grief, improve carer mental health, and the overall relationship. The group format has also helped carers to feel less isolated and alone. Emerging research also indicates that involving family members and carers in a supportive, skills-based group program can improve outcomes for the person with borderline personality disorder and facilitate their recovery. Family members and carers of people with borderline personality disorder have often reported feeling excluded from the treatment process. There are lots of clinicians and organisations working hard around Australia to improve the landscape for people with borderline personality disorder and their family members and carers, and I feel as though they're slowly making headway. Of course, in the treatment process, it is important to maintain confidentiality and trust. However, there are many ways to involve family members and carers without breaching confidentiality. With the person's consent, it can be useful to develop a safety or care plan with the carer so that everyone knows what to do in the event of a crisis. Family members or carers can be involved in support groups or skills groups where strategies are taught to help the carer with the roller coaster ride and even coach their loved one at home with a shared language. Families and carers can find it incredibly helpful to be given information regarding the health service, general mental health, and who to contact if they're concerned. Carers can also seek their own psychological support to guide them through the process, focus on self-care, and implement helpful changes in the relationship. To clinicians, I want to emphasise that the research supports family and carer involvement. Australian and international guidelines in the treatment of people with borderline personality disorder recommend family and carer involvement as essential. The research shows that these carers often struggle alongside their loved one, and that this can impact both on the carer and the person with borderline personality disorder. Clinicians are limited in how often we see our clients and therefore how much we affect change. But if we include the carer in the process and harness the power of improving the relationship, this can enhance safety, reinforce the psychological skills and strategies at home, and also facilitate recovery. You're not alone. There are others out there in a similar situation to you. There are support services available to you and your loved one. And there's some practical things that you can do. Develop a safety plan so that you're prepared in the event of a crisis. Continue to seek information. Link in with support services in your local area or online. And try to step off the roller coaster ride and support your loved one from stable ground by remembering to take care of yourself too.